All right, our next speaker is Paul Kengor, who has written the book, The 11 Principles of a Reagan Conservative. Paul Kengor is a professor at Grove City College in Pennsylvania and the executive director of Grove City's Center for Vision and Values, a think tank. He is a New York Times best-selling author and frequent contributor to MSNBC, C-SPAN, Fox, and a columnist for Town Hall Magazine and The American Spectator. His work in many think tanks and his frequent public speaking bring him a national reputation for his work on conservative principles and the American presidency. Paul Kengor is well qualified to tell us what it means to be a real Reaganaut. Please welcome Paul Kengor. Welcome.
Thank you, Ann. Hello, everybody. And my greetings to Phyllis, who I know is not here. I understand it took an operation to sideline her. But she is, for those of you who aren't familiar with her background, I'm sure most of you are, but she is one of the true heroes of the conservative movement. I mean, I could stand up here spend my 20 minutes just talking about her contributions and what she did. But I was saying out there earlier to Ryan, I believe this is the 50th anniversary of her book, A Choice, Not an Echo.
It is.
Which 1964, and that was on behalf of Barry Goldwater, the Barry Goldwater campaign. And it was also the year that Ronald Reagan gave his time for choosing speech. That was October 27th, 1964. And those were both absolutely pivotal to the conservative movement. I mean, Barry Goldwater got creamed that year. It wasn't even close, but it launched something else much bigger, much longer, and far more significant. So whereas the conservative movement lost in '64, in the long run, it won. And it won because of people like Phyllis Schlafly, Ronald Reagan, and others. And so I want to talk today a little bit about what is a Ronald Reagan conservative. That's been my specialty. I've written more books on Ronald Reagan than I have on any other subject and any other person. And today, in Washington, wherever else, you hear Republicans and people running for office, and you ask them what they believe, and they say, well, I believe what Ronald Reagan believed. Right? How would you describe yourself politically? And they'll say, I'm a Reagan conservative. You hear that over and over and over again, including from a lot of people who call themselves Reagan conservatives that clearly aren't Reagan conservatives. Just a couple weeks ago, and this is being recorded, I'll try to be nice, so I won't take shots at people. But I heard somebody a couple weeks ago describe himself as a Reagan conservative who clearly wasn't a Reagan conservative. But part of the reason for that, why so many Republicans want to emulate Reagan, just look at the man's political success. It was absolutely stunning. Here's somebody who twice was elected governor of California in landslides, including in 1966, won against a popular Democratic incumbent. 1980, runs against a Democratic incumbent president. And as you've noticed, the trend in America more recently has been that the American public reelects its presidents, right? They generally get 2 terms. Well, because of Ronald Reagan against Jimmy Carter in 1980, that didn't happen. Reagan beat Carter so soundly, Reagan took 44 out of 50 states. That's pretty remarkable, especially for a very clear conservative Republican. Reagan in 1984 was reelected by winning 49 out of 50 states. 49 out of 50 states. Anyone know the state that he lost?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, which was the home state of his challenger, Walter Mondale. So think about this. Reagan won in 1984. The Electoral College vote was 525 to 13. 525 to 13. Combined Electoral College victory for Reagan, 80 and 84, was 1,014 to 62. Reagan, a conservative Republican, twice won California. You say, well, he was from California, he was governor. Okay, all right. Massachusetts. Name for me the conservative Republican who's going to win Massachusetts twice in 2016 and 2020. New Jersey, twice. New York, twice. My home state of Pennsylvania, twice. So just enormously successful. Gallup today does a presidential a poll every President's Day. They ask Americans who their favorite all-time president was. Reagan has won that more than any other president since they started doing it every year in 1999. He beats Lincoln, he beats Washington, beats FDR, all of them. There was a poll done in 2005 by online survey by Time and AOL, and it asked Americans, who's the greatest American of all time? Not who's the greatest president of all time, right? Who's the greatest American of all time? 2.4 million respondents, and they picked Reagan. So very, very popular. One more poll. I can give you poll after poll after poll. 2013, February, after Barack Obama, his second inaugural, which should be at the height of his popularity. By the way, Obama got reelected, but got reelected with less electoral college votes and less popular votes. First and only president that that's happened with. Reagan got reelected with 49 states. Obama got reelected with 26 states, a bare majority. But poll done in February 2013, it asked Americans, again, right after Obama's second inaugural, if a presidential election was held today between Ronald Reagan and Barack Obama, who would you vote for? Reagan won by 58%. That's higher than the percentage of votes he got against Carter. And Reagan also won in that survey among voters ages 18 to 25, which was the youth group that elected Barack Obama. So imagine that. So you could see why so many Republicans would like to be like Reagan and say that I'm a Reagan conservative, right? They like to emulate Reagan's political success, probably, first and foremost. But that said, that gets to the question of what did Ronald Reagan believe? So I endeavored a couple years ago to, because I'd done a number of books on Reagan, Reagan's faith, Reagan and the end of the Cold War, a whole bunch of different things, and there's a conference that was being done on conservatism, and my friend said, everybody's always calling themselves a Reagan conservative. You should go out and lay out what exactly is a Reagan conservative. What does a Reagan conservative believe? I said, all right, I'll try to do that. Reagan himself was asked, what is a conservative? In February 1977, February 6, 1977, Reagan was speaking at CPAC. And Reagan spoke at CPAC more times than anybody else probably in the history of CPAC, or at least for the first 13, 14, 15 years. He hardly missed any. Reagan didn't miss a single CPAC the entire time he was president. All right? As president, he spoke to CPAC every single year. And Reagan said, conservatism can mean different things to those who call themselves conservative, right? As you know today. If you ask everybody in this room for a definition of conservatism, you'll probably get almost as many different definitions and answers as there are people in this room. So Reagan tried to give somewhat of a definition. And by the way, he said it's like what Potter Stewart said about pornography. It's hard to define, but I know it when I see it. It's what he said of conservatism. It's hard to define conservatism, but I know a conservative when I see one. Reagan said, the common sense and common decency of ordinary men and women working out their own lives in their own way, that's the heart of American conservatism today. Now keep in mind, this is February 1977. Jimmy Carter had just been inaugurated president after defeating Gerald Ford, a Republican who never won a presidential election, who replaced a Republican, Richard Nixon, who was pushed out of office, who resigned in disgrace. And the Republican Party at that time was completely ripped apart by Nixon, Rockefeller Republicans, détente Nick Republicans, kind of liberal, squishy Republicans, conservative Republicans, a lot of the same divisions that you see today among what they call rhinos, Tea Party, libertarians. All these things were still there. In fact, I would say it was worse then. In fact, it was so bad that Ronald Reagan, whose 11th commandment was, thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican, ran against Gerald Ford in 1976 and tried to take the Republican nomination away from him. I mean, that's how bad it was. That's how bad the divisions were at the time. So Reagan's definition, February 1977. The common sense and common decency of ordinary men and women. Conservative wisdom and principles are derived from a willingness to learn, not just from what is going on now, but from what has happened before. And think about that. That might sound like common sense, which I think it is, but progressives don't think that way. They think that what's happened in the past